For more now, I'm joined by the senior senator from California, Democrat Alex Padilla. Senator, welcome back to The Story Is.
Thanks, Alex. Thanks for having me back.
So in the coming hours, we're expecting to hear from President Trump for a primetime address to talk about voting rights and elections. You're a former Secretary of State who ran voting in the biggest state in the union. What are you hearing about what President Trump is going to say, and what are you most concerned about?
Yeah, so I know a couple of things, Alex. First of all, from that prior role as Secretary of State in California, I can attest to the security and integrity of our voting systems. California is leading the way in making it more accessible for eligible voters to register and to vote. What I can also tell you is that for a decade now, if not more, Donald Trump has been spewing lies and conspiracy theories about the integrity of our election. Going back to his first race in 2016, when we all first learned the term foreign interference. And so he's peddled with this. When he's anticipating an election where he's going to lose, or the people he's supporting is going to lose, he starts setting the stage to call into question the results. And that's what we see again. I don't know exactly what he's going to say in his primetime speech, but I can assure you it's going to be full of lies and conspiracy theories, because whenever he's failing, which is often these days, prices are up, he's losing in Iran, on and on and on, he has to pivot. He has to try to distract from his record. And in this case, with less than 112 days to go till the election, here we go again.
When you were Secretary of State in California during COVID, you implemented universal mail-in ballots, where every person in the state automatically gets a ballot. It's something that President Trump talks about all the time when it comes to California. And it's something that Joe Rogan and J.D. Vance talked about on Joe Rogan's podcast, the vice president talking about Spencer Pratt not getting into the top two after mail-in ballots came in that were against him. Listen to this.
It's like you were designing the vote share in order to kick Pratt out and put the third person into second place. That to me is like very, very bizarre.
President Trump says we would be safer, there'd be less fraud if people showed up to vote in person with a voter ID. That way you're not sending out ballots to all these people. There isn't ballot harvesting. There isn't the greater chance for fraud. What do you say to that?
Yeah, so again, a few things, but let's get this straight. Vote by mail is safe, is secure, and yes, it's very popular because it is very convenient. The president himself votes by mail, so he's saying it's good enough for him, but not good enough for the rest of us, which is not true. Second, when it comes to vote by mail, California is not the first universal vote by mail state. Other states have been sending ballots by mail to every voter in their states. I think California does it even better, because you afford voters the options for how to return your ballot. By mail, return postage is prepaid. Voters can drop it off at a drop box anywhere in their county, or you can walk it into a polling place near you, right? It's all about safety, security, and options and convenience for voters. You have to do both. The other element that Donald Trump doesn't like, when he calls into question the mayor's race in Los Angeles, because once again his candidate was losing, so he needs to find an excuse. He needs to try to distract. When more people vote, he tends to do worse. So he's trying to make it more difficult for people to register, to stay registered, or in this case, for their ballots to be counted.
You are a member of the Judiciary Committee in the Senate, which means you were one of those asking questions on this day of Todd Blanche, who is the acting attorney general, wants to get that job in a permanent role. Here's some of what you talked about with him.
The Department of Justice should be independent or not?
I think as I said earlier, the Department of Justice is under the executive branch. If confirmed, I will be member of the president's cabinet. So absolutely, my obligation is the American people and the rule of law.
So we'll
but
talk
that
about
being said, I am a member of the cabinet of the president of the United States.
We know that you're not going to vote for him. We know that none of the Democrats on the committee are going to vote for him. But what about the Republicans? Have you talked to your colleagues that are not facing re-election in terms of where they're going to be? Do you think that Todd Blanche has the votes right now?
I think at the end of the day, he may very well have the votes. There's a couple of Republicans who remain a question. I haven't heard from them that they're definitely going to vote for him or that they're definitely not going to vote for him. So we will see. What we needed to do today in this confirmation hearing to make sure it's a substantive confirmation hearing is to lay out the record. And that question that I asked about independence. Historically, the Attorney General and the Department of Justice is supposed to be independent and impartial. What we've seen under this second Donald Trump administration is the Department of Justice weaponized. And Todd Blanche has not denied it. You know, he's been there from almost day one as the Deputy Attorney General since Pam Bondi was let go. He's been the acting Attorney General, and he made it clear that he considered himself as the executive branch. He's a member of Trump's cabinet, and his duty is to carry out Trump's agenda, which is wrong. The Attorney General of the United States is the Attorney General of the people of the United States, not the personal lawyer for the president. Oh, wait. Todd Blanche was the personal lawyer for Donald Trump, and he reminded us of that during the hearing today. That's all you need to know.
Senator Alex Padilla, thank you so much for spending some time with us on a very, very busy day for you. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, Alex.